This morning, the Supreme Court recognized that the Constitution guarantees marriage equality. In doing so, they've reaffirmed that all Americans are entitled to the equal protection of the law, that all people should be treated equally, regardless of who they are or who they love.
Love, community,
fulfillment.
Pride is a part of your identity, and it's just about being prideful of who you are and yourself and being unapologetic about who you are as a person.
Important for those that have newly started questioning to know that it's okay, there's nothing wrong with you, and it's important for for us all to remember that we are who we are, and that's okay.
It's about finding people that you can, well, not necessarily fit in with, but get along with and love like a family, especially for those of us who are so completely ostracized from regular society that we don't necessarily have that otherwise.
Pride brings out a lot of our best qualities. Like at the Pride Parade, we are a whole like family. We gather together and we just express ourselves in all these different ways, and then this huge parade, and it's a real great time. And that's why Pride's so important, and even not just the parade, just in general, like the feeling. We can express ourselves, which we don't usually get to do because, you know, the way we express ourselves cannot be expressed normally in daily life. And so when we can have a lot of pride, we can express it normally, and we can do it in large quantities, and then that helps a lot with just like the entire family.
A lot of the misconceptions about Pride is that it's just cis, white, gay men exhibiting stereotypically feminine qualities, and that's not everyone in the community at all. There's so much more.
There's kind of a spectrum, and there's like two extreme ends. On one end, you have people that think everything is all hunky-dory all the time, everything is good, everyone's included, everything is absolutely perfect. And I wish that were so, but we still have a lot of problematic behaviors as a community today that we are obviously working to work through. And it's a long, hard road, and obviously no one is perfect, but there's a decent amount of change that has to come from inside the community as well as outside in that regard. And then there's everyone at the very other end of the spectrum that think Pride is just for the average white homosexual man and are trans exclusionist or asexual exclusionist or whatever XYZ thing, that they think that these people shouldn't have a say in whether or not they're in the LGBT plus community, but rather just assume that they aren't.
A lot of people think that LGBT pride is just like rainbow, rainbow, pride, pride, rainbow. And people just think it's a parade and everyone's just throwing streamers around, and it's crazy and obnoxious, and you're kind of right. But Pride is also just a time where people gather together, and you just like, it's so weird because when you walk in to that parade or you have that feeling, you just feel like one with all these different people you've never met before. And you know, you're at the Pride Parade and you see two guys holding hands and you get so happy because you're like, they look happy, and that makes you happy because it's like your family, but you're not. Pride is like a shared experience of happiness, and it's really, you know, it's not exactly correct when people just think, oh, it's a person waving a rainbow flag around, because like, you know, it's not just that, it's a very emotional time.
It had been bugging me for a while that that there was a fairly large part of my personality, because you had all these girls that would talk about boys, and all these boys that would talk about girls, and a lot of in between, obviously, for people that were a little bit braver than I. But there was this large part of like, I wanted to talk about girls too, but I couldn't because I would out myself. And I was terrified of that for a really long time. I was terrified that I would just say something really airheaded and accidentally out myself to the entire school, and I didn't want that to happen. Of course, in the end, it was pretty much fine. There were a few people that were obviously, it made them really uncomfortable, but on the surface, they made up for it by, like, they were like, oh, this doesn't change the way I see you. And I'm like, yeah, it shouldn't. You shouldn't even need to say that. And it's not just because it's me who's the gay person here. It shouldn't matter who is gay. It shouldn't matter if you don't even like that person, because they're still a person.
So yeah, I know people have had it a lot worse than me. I wouldn't say I've ever been threatened, but I for sure have been afraid. I haven't even really come out to my parents yet, and so when I asked to go to the Pride Parade, like, I'm really scared to ask because I don't want them to think anything of me. Every single time I ask, it's fine. They're fine with it. But I'm so scared that they're gonna just assume something and then they're gonna treat me differently. Or, you know, I've dated a couple people in the past, well, just in the past couple months, a person in the past couple months, and I'm afraid to hold her hand in the hallway. I really am, because, you know, people might not notice it, but they do stare at you. They really do, and even if they're like accepting, they stare at you, like, and you can feel the judgment. And it's not, you know, homophobic. It's not merely that. It can sometimes just be a little bit of a weird stare, like, oh, that's what's happening. And it still feels kind of upsetting, but it's okay.
Experiment. Don't be afraid to try things out. If you want to try out presenting as a different gender, go to Goodwill, buy out all the cheap clothes they have, and so if it doesn't work for you, just return them. It's fine. Donate it back. Give it to somebody else who will like it. Don't be afraid to try out new names, new sexualities. Don't be afraid to try asking people out. If you crash and burn, whatever, just get right back up, try it again. Just don't be afraid to try new things. It's really scary, but once you do it, it'll pay off. It'll be a lot nicer after that.
It's okay to not know, and it's if you choose to label yourself as questioning for the time being, that's perfectly valid. I spent a while questioning, and you don't have to find a label. But if you do feel more comfortable having a word, I hope you find the right word for you.
Because adolescence is a really difficult time. And it's especially a really difficult time for, you know, the ostracized kids, the kids that don't fit the cookie cutter, cishet, white, whatever. So for those of us that are still trying to find who we are, I mean, that's pretty much all of us, but for those of us who are looking for a label that fits, my best advice is to relax, because there's no deadline. And in the end, you should just find what you're comfortable with and stick with that. And if it changes, that's fine too, because human identity is something that's very fluid in nature, and that's all right.
I would say, again, researching is great. Watching YouTube videos. YouTube may seem a little silly, but honestly, there's a lot of great resources on it. And also there is this website called the Trevor Project. The Trevor Project has a whole resource page that just has all these different links to what do you do if you have a crush on someone with the same sex, what do you do if you're feeling like you're transgender, what do you do if you're feeling like you might have the same sex attraction, like all these different things, or like asexual. And you can just click on it, there's an entire page, you can read through it, you can just like learn about it. And it's really nice because it's all legitimate information, and there's all these different resources on the pages, on the resource pages. There's resource pages on the resource pages, and you can just keep on looking stuff up, and it's really great because you get informed, and then you get to know more about yourself and other people, and yeah.
Definitely.
Yes, absolutely. It always gets better no matter what. I know that it seems really hard when you're scared and confused. You don't know who you are, you don't know who's out to get you. But once you get over that rather large speed bump, things start looking up a lot brighter. And it just, don't believe people when they say, oh, life sucks forever, because it doesn't. Especially in high school, it seems like that, but realistically, things will always turn out okay in the end.
It gets better over time, but it takes a lot of time and energy to heal from anything. And life is always going to have its ups and downs, and there are always going to be points where you feel like you can't do anything, and you feel like you're drowning, but you just have to keep in mind that maybe just over the crest of the next wave, you'll be able to see the horizon again. And you just kind of have to keep treading water, because you'll get there eventually.
No matter what you're feeling right now, in a year, you will look back on it and you will not be able to relate whatsoever to what you're feeling. Like, it'll be such a different person. You'll be like, whoa, because you grow a lot in a year. So, and plus, you're still in that growing stage. Your brain is changing. So many things are happening. So it's not worth it to assume that it's going to stay like this forever.